Happy New Year! I really hope you are well and that you are enjoying the Christmas season. That's if you're watching this at the very beginning of January and not in July or something like that. So, welcome. My name is Cate Field. I'm an artist and teacher and speaker and really passionate about helping people find their creative spirit, and then once they've found it, to develop it and try new things and to just sort of work through lots of things like that. So we're going to begin the year with just a little watercolour abstract tutorial. And a lot of people they can get a bit fearful about creating abstracts, about thinking that they're not doing it correctly or not even starting because they just don't know where to begin. So if that's you, then this is the tutorial for you. So a huge welcome if you are new, and welcome back, my lovely, lovely followers who've been with me for ages. And yes, so enough of this. Let's get going. So I have made a start in my brand new watercolour sketchbook. I encourage you to work in a sketchbook, but if you don't, then you can work on separate pieces of paper. You need to have paper for watercolour that is quite substantial. This is 300 grams per square metre, but you could also use wallpaper lining paper. I am just going to be using my very cheap watercolour paints because I just want to play, really. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. I've got a soft brush. I've got some metallics. I might add some of those in as well. And a water spray. And what we're going to do is just relax and enjoy the process. This is very much my teaching method. And we're going to start off. I'm going to start off on this page, I think. I've just put a little square in there. And I'm going to go in with blues. I'm going to carry on with, this is nearly run out because I use it so often. And all we're going to do is I put a bit of spray paint on there, and then we're just going to put in a line. Look at that. How fun is that? And this is the thing, isn't it? You're just going to play with some lines. And if you are not used to using watercolours, this is such a good exercise. It's what I do with my students, in my classes, in my real life classes. Can you see? I'm just making some marks with the brush, just seeing what happens. Same colour. Look at that. How fun is that? You're just making the marks. I'm going to dip into the water, so I'm a little bit croaky. I really hope you're well. So I'm recording this on New Year's Day. You'll see it on the 3rd of January, but you might be watching it later in the year. I am so grateful for all of you who make wonderful comments and suggestions and ask questions and things like that. It's just so lovely. So you're just playing. We're just putting some marks. I'm just going to leave that for a little bit. We're going to move on to this side where I've put in, I've nearly dipped my brush in my tea. Right, I'm moving my tea over there. Yeah, those of you who've watched me for a while will know that that does actually happen more regularly than I'd like to admit. Right, bit of spray on there. I'm going to keep to the sort of blues on this page as well. This has got sort of quite a bit of water on. I'm just going to push my finger down on here. We're just making marks, because what I want you to do is to just see how the paint works. Whenever I'm using a new paint that I haven't used before, or maybe a new brush that I haven't used, these are the sorts of things that I do, just so that I can kind of get the feel for the paint and the brush and what it might do. And that is very much what I encourage you to do as well. I'm going to just hold that page down a little bit and just put these marks on. And when it's dry, we're going to just add some other other marks to it. We're just getting ourselves into the space, and I really do encourage you to give yourself time. Now, one of the things that I encourage all of my students to do is several things at the same time. So I've left that one to dry, and I'm going to work on one of my concertina books. I have a tutorial on how to make these little books. I really love them. I love them for putting in ideas and doodling and trying things and writing some poems and things like that. So if you want to know how to make one, I'll put the link in the description. But we're just going to be working in this. I'm going to spread it all out and have a bit of fun on this one. With a book like this, you could just do individual pages. That could be really lovely to do. Or you could open it up and do a long continuous piece. And this is what I'm going to do with this one, because I want to create a background. Now this paper is cartridge paper. It's about 250 grams, so it's not actually that tough. So I do need to be a little bit careful when I'm making it really wet. But you'll see, it works really well. So it just means that you can put in lines. I'm not making it quite as wet as the other one. What I'm doing is putting in some waves. I'm creating this just a very kind of wiggly, messy background, and then I'm going to put something on top of it, which you'll see when we get to the end. Let me just do this again. This is one of those things that I really do encourage all of my students. Now I teach classes in real life. I teach adults, which is lovely, but I also teach children, and I teach little ones and secondary. I was a secondary school art teacher for a very long time, and I've taught in colleges on sort of higher level courses as well. I get them all to do the same thing. You have to be able to let yourself go. You have to forget about worrying, making mistakes and things like that, and you have to allow yourself time to play with the medium. So this medium obviously is watercolour, and even if you are very experienced in using watercolour, there's always something new to learn. How the paint moves about on a particular type of paper, for example. So I encourage all of my students to have a sketchbook in which they just play. That is the whole purpose. The whole purpose of that sketchbook is experimental play. So there are going to be some very interesting bits, some of which you might not like. But that is how we learn. And I can't stress that enough. One of the most difficult things when I'm teaching, especially teenagers, young teenagers, how many times have I fished stuff out of the bin? Yeah, you might be a bit like that too. Please don't do that. Don't put it in the bin. Everything that you do is you learning. And if you don't like something, think about the reasons why you don't like it. So this is seriously messy. It's just like a load of scribbles. But I'm getting the feel of not only the paint on the paper, I'm getting an understanding of how the brush works, but I'm also having an understanding of colour. So it might look like a whole scribbly mess, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. Trust me on this. So I've come back to this one. It didn't take very long to dry. Watercolour doesn't. And what I'm going to do now, I've got a bit of tissue, because I want to make the brush damp rather than sopping wet. I'm using the tip of the brush, and again I'm just using my blues. I'm still using the blues, but I'm looking at the white spaces. So I'm just looking at this space here, and I'm just going to draw and paint lines in some of these spaces. And again, this is a really good exercise in control. and just seeing what the brush can do, practicing your fine motor skills. And if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter, because you're just playing, aren't you? You see, just building up these lines. And when we put in different marks onto a piece like this, where you've got different textures, so because we're keeping the same colours, that doesn't get too confusing. We can really start to just play with an idea which you can then develop, which is what I talk about all the time. So artists don't just kind of go with the first thing that pops into their head. What we do is we play, we have some fun with some ideas, we think, yeah, let's have a think about that and how that might work. And then some of these ideas will then get developed further. Now, I have sketchbooks going back for 30 years. I have a lot of sketchbooks, and I frequently look back at my old sketchbooks for inspiration and ideas. I'm just going to try this one. And I would encourage you to do the same. And it's interesting when I look back at my sketchbooks for when I did my degree, for example, and some of it is just awful. I think, yeah, I've definitely got better. But, you know, some of it, you think, oh, yeah, I had a really good idea there. Never had time to develop it or anything like that. So I did it later. And it's that allowing yourself to try out something different. And if you are already, oh, excuse me, if you are already quite experienced painter, what I would suggest is you get out of your comfort zone. Really important to sort of develop as an artist by trying something that you haven't done before, or trying something that you have done before and it all went horribly wrong, so you never went back to it. That kind of thing. And again, when I'm teaching young people, especially at sort of degree college level, getting them to try something different is quite challenging sometimes, because they've got really good at doing one particular thing and they'll think, oh no, I'll just stick with that because that works. And I think that's a little bit sad. So you can see that just same colours, same colours and same tones. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of water, just using the white spaces. And now I'm going to go in with my metallics. I did a tutorial on how to use metallic paints. I will link that below as well. I have put my tutorials into playlists, and I've combined some of them as well, so some of them will be like, this is just watercolors, or this is abstracts. And so I'm just putting in just touches of silver. When you put the paint over the top of a colour, the metallics, that's kind of when the magic happens, really. And you can combine them too, which I do really like. I like to do combinations. You see what happens? I don't know whether you can see that on the camera. It's just putting that over that bit there, and it's fun. And I'm going to do some more on that, and then I'm going to go back to the other one. So coming back to this one, it's all completely dry now in the book, and I'm just going to use some marker pens. I've got a Posca pen, but I've also got a really cheap black marker pen that I use for kind of labelling and packaging, and I thought, I wonder if this will work. It might not. We're just going to see. So you do have to have this dry for this kind of effect, or just try it out and see. Now I'm looking at some of the shapes that I've already got. Yeah, so I can see this marker is not brilliant, but you know, it's okay. There we go. Just going to put in a bit of blocks of colour. I'm just picking out some of the abstract shapes in these. And you can use this sort of effect for art journaling as well, which you know, I do a lot of. I find art journaling extremely therapeutic, but it's also brilliant for putting my ideas down. And you know, I do a lot of writing, and I love poetry, and some of it's not very good. But it's so, you know, it's like putting your thoughts down, and art journaling is very good for that. And you know, people can use art journals in all sorts of different ways. Yeah, the Posca pen is obviously a better quality pen, and I'm just, again, like I said, I'm just sort of picking out some of the shapes from this abstract design, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I haven't got a plan for this. That's not always the way. When I'm doing when I'm developing a piece, then yes, I will have a plan. But I always think it's quite important to give yourself some freedom and just see what happens. And what I am going to do with this one is to introduce another colour. And again, getting an understanding of what colours work well together, or colours that you like together. This sort of exercise can be great fun. And I'm going to put in some green. This is an Edding acrylic pen. I use it a lot and it is running out of ink, running out of paint, but it's great for making marks. I will put all the materials that I use in the description. You can check those out if you'd like to. You see this, just this kind of effect is I quite like it. I think it's quite fun. And I might put in some words, or I might just keep this a very loose abstract piece. I do like the way these colours work together. I'm just going to put this green on top of that black there, break that up, break up that space. Yeah, there's always going to be bits that you think, oh no, I really don't like that. But that's okay. And if you were at college, if I was your tutor, your lecturer, I would get you to make notes on the things that you like and the things that you don't like, because it's when we can really start to analyse our own tastes, that is when we're really going to start to develop our practice. Let's just put these in here. There we go. Just going to put in just some. I'm just looking at seeing what works, what might not work, and just having some fun with that. Now, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be developing some work, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. So I've had a few people ask me about where do I go from the experimental stage, what do I do next? And I think that was a really interesting question. And yeah, I'm going to put together some thoughts and some ideas. Let's try this one and show you what I do, and then I will show you some finished pieces and things like that. So I have got a couple of exhibitions this year, which is very exciting, and I'll be doing some one-off workshops as well near to where I live. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I hope you've got some lovely things coming up as well. Let me know in the comments what you're doing, what your plans are for your creative pursuits, and what things you want to learn. I'm going to go in with a bit of pink. I think this has really run out, actually. I don't think I'm going to get much more out of this. I use it so frequently. Yeah, it's very wishy-washy now. I think I need to get some more, but it is great. These are a little bit more expensive, but they do last, but you don't have to have them. I have done a tutorial just using children's paints that I got from the pound shop or from the local supermarket. You might like to check that one out, because you don't need to spend a lot of money to create art. You really don't. And I feel quite strongly about that, actually. I don't think anyone should be restricted because they can't afford the best things. For me, I like to just sort of save up and buy the quality ones. Right, I'm just going to leave that because I think I've probably done a little bit too much on that, but that's okay. Let me know what you think. Kate, you should have stopped there. So finally, I'm going to come back to this one. I really liked that green. I've got some more different sorts of greens here, acrylic pens, and I'm just going to make some marks in some of these spaces. And I am liking this design, and I think this is going to be one of those that I develop into another piece, and I might do it as part of my exhibition later in the year, something like this. I like the energy, and I like the way the colours work together, and I like the different textures. So let me know what you think. I read every single comment. Thank you so much. And if you'd like to join our very friendly Facebook group, the link is below. Oh my gosh, what a lovely community it is. And I'm just a little bit overwhelmed actually by how lovely everyone is. So if you're looking for a nice friendly place to show your art, to ask questions, to support other people, then that could be the place for you. And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, that would be really good. It helps me to keep the channel going, which I really want to do. And let me know if there's other things that you'd like me to show you. I've had a couple of people ask me about a studio tour, and I have actually been putting that off because my studio is a bit of a mess, to be honest. You've probably seen little glimpses of it. But you know, it might be interesting to show you. Let me know. There we go. Can you see what's happening here? I'm just doing little contours and pulling that together. I do like this green. I'm just going to try the other green, see if that will work as well. And again, in a sketchbook, in a journal, you could put little notes on the different paints that you've used, the different pens that you've used. And I've done this in lots of books in the past, especially when I'm trying out a new product, because I think I need to know what I've used. When I go back and look through my books, I think, oh, I really like that. What did I use there? It doesn't always work. Sometimes I forget. But I'm just going to put a few little squiggles in there. Just filling in that white space, which I quite like. This sort of slightly different greens. I think that works really well. I'm just going to do the last little bit in that corner and this corner. Give those different sorts of textures. And then I'm just going to do a little bit of an outline. I think it's got a slight glitter to this one. Go around the edges a little bit. You could use a ruler for this if you wanted to. I quite like it when it's a bit wiggly. Like that. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to be doing a few more in my sketchbook here and in my concertina book. I'm going to do some in there, and then I might develop some ideas for the future into sort of larger pieces, something like that. If you haven't liked and you've got this far, that would be really nice. And if you haven't subscribed yet, that would be terrific too. You take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.